Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, whatever the case may be, welcome. It has been far too long. I think the last time that I did this, I had red hair, or pink hair. A lot of people thought that, that color was, pink, when I was working at, last season at T-Mobile. And yeah, I think that was when the last time I did it was during the last before off season. So it's been a minute, and it's there's been a lot. There's been a lot of stuff to talk about. I just haven't been able to process the emotions needed to do it, I guess. Um, but I'm definitely in a much better place now. Been doing a lot more therapy work. I've been recently doing mastermind courses with Anna Liliana, I believe, and she's really, really good. Because on top of, this is what you need to make a successful business, she also practices mindfulness practices, and we do things like retrain our relation with money and all this kind of stuff. And it's been very good that I still have a lot of internal work to do before I get to the point where I want to thrive. And God, look, my bags are really showing today, and I'm just noticing that. But that's what happens when you get old, and you don't take the time to nourish your face or whatever. I need to make a Sephora's run or something once I get this whole money thing under control. Which progress is being made. Progress is being made on that front, and it's been very I've been going through a lot of bittersweet emotions and things like that. Because yesterday was my last day working at Climate Pledge, so that way I can focus on T-Mobile full time. And it was emotional. It really was. They didn't want me to leave. I really felt like I earned the respect of my peers there. But there's a ceiling, and I don't think security is the career path that I want to go. But it was nice to feel like I was doing something, and at the same time, Climate Pledge gave such an immense opportunity that I get to say that I got to do things that very few people got to do with some of the top acts like Guns N' Roses, and again going out on Tim McGraw. And the man, I tell you this, the thing that I got the most out of is Tim McGraw is surprisingly jacked. I was at a post where I have to make sure the credentials of only the backstage people are able to go to this particular spot. And as I'm stepping forward to check the credentials, for lack of a better word, Tim McGraw's handler was no, he's with me. And I'm going to step in to say, can I check your credentials? Dude in a cowboy hat. It was the man himself, and he has a very strong handshake. And so defined under his white shirt. And there's he has BMF walk, okay? He knows that he's the man, but he's so he has such a bright eyes and smile, and just I can see why people are drawn to this man, because I was in that moment, and I felt very sheepish that I stepped in and asked for the credentials of Tim McGraw. I mean, how dare I? He never said any of this. This is just what was going on in my head, and I felt very sheepish. And keep in mind, I have a good maybe 6 inches on him, and he kind of made me feel like a baby. I'm not gonna lie. Oh goodness. But it's things like that where it's like I get to have stories like that, and Climate Pledge made it possible to do that. Um, so I'm like thankful, and I got like a personal referral from my boss in that department, and I I feel like if an opportunity arose to venture further into the entertainment venue, someplace like the Sphere, or even like even someplace in Chicago like Wrigley Field. Is that's the Chicago one? I think, yeah, or is Wrigley San Francisco? My brain is so mush when it comes to remembering names and places. Going back into payroll stuff, I look at numbers all day. I hardly remember names as it is. It's just brain goes to mush. Typing fingers go burr, and that's what happens. Kids don't get old. I'll tell you that much right now. And like I'm not bitter about it. Like when I had a more defined beard, I'm shaving off portions of it to let it regrow better. There was incidentally a little bit of rashing right here, and so therefore it's going to expose my double chin just a little bit, and I have to not be so self-conscious about that. I'm working on being nicer and kinder to myself. I am also acknowledging and working on taking a freaking compliment. I am so bad at that. Like, if somebody says, "Hey, I like your outfit," I might go to what, this whole thing I got it at Value Village, but no, I have to stop that analytical part of my brain and just be like, "Thank you. I appreciate the compliment." Because that's very difficult in my hypercritical mind, which is because of my hypercritical, hyperconservative upbringing and childhood trauma. And I know that tends to be like a buzzword that goes around, but I'll tell you what, it's true. Like, you know how I knew that I was making progress? Like, okay, so here's a little backstory. Like, Mel Robbins is one of my favorite motivational people to learn on like ways of reprogramming. You probably have heard like the 5 second rule. When you're in a spot where you need to do something and you can't hesitate on it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And I think The Miz has something similar to it. Like he counts to 4 and then just does the thing, and that's why he's able to do so well. Is he can push through the fear. But Mel Robbins had a thing. Where was I going with this? Oh, she talks about the high fiving yourself first thing in the morning. And so like when you're like, brushing your teeth and looking in the mirror, whatever, like give yourself a pep talk and like physically high five the mirror. And that like is like you are acknowledging yourself and you got this. And there's like portions of that you can translate that into your, like your inner child and things like that. Last few therapy sessions of like have a conversation with your inner child, find out what they want, find out what and again it's this whole thing of like your first intuition about a thing is usually the right one, so that's what they're telling you. My inner child still wants to be a Power Ranger, and so I have to sort of navigate that sort of mindset of things. You know what's a weird practice that works with me? Fist bump my inner child. Like literally, just like I'm gonna take a stand a little bit just to sort of illustrate this a little bit better. So like if I'm just like doing a thing, and like especially like if I'm in a moment of like when I'm doing my security work, and I just have to take a moment to acknowledge and like, yeah, this is cool, and like my inner child is like right here, like dancing or whatever, because like if I'm like internally happy, my inner child is like dancing or whatever, and I'm just gonna be like, yeah, and then just like take the moment to like, yeah, I acknowledge that this works. Bam, way to go, kid. Let's do the thing. And that like taking the moment to like actively practice that has been so needed. because I feel like we get into this rut of like we just keep doing things, we keep doing things, we keep doing things, and we don't give ourselves a moment to breathe, to like acknowledge the thing that we did well. We're always so focused on, if you get 100 compliments, or I mean, if you get 100 comments, 99 of them are good and one of them are bad, you're going to focus on the one bad one. When we don't take the time to consider, like, we're making progress, like, we are affecting people. And, like, I can't overemphasize, like, me taking the time away from my hobbies, my passion projects, like I love and respect every single one of you that is going and doing the wrestling thing and making it happen. But I was just not in a place where I could excel in that. Like mentally, physically, I didn't have the means to do that. And so instead of like beating myself up about it and trying to like go against the grain and be like, I'm gonna do this no matter what, I'm gonna crawl on my hands and knees and I'm gonna get to where that person at the very top was when they, because they started 10 years ago and I'm better than that and I'm gonna crawl and just go through barbed wire and shit and just like, yeah, I was not in a healthy state of mind to be focusing on that. Like, I wanted to do the thing because I saw the potential for what it was. Like, when Swerve unlocked a thing in me in 2017, I knew that this was going to be the next big thing for our town and for our industry. And I wanted to so much be alongside that, but I was not in a spot to do so. So the most that I could do is cheer on people on the sidelines. And I love being the Jimmy Hart with the megaphone and amplifying people. I love doing that. There's still a small part of me that wants to be in that limelight with you, but it killed me inside that I wasn't able to. Like, at the time, like, let's look at it realistically. 2017, 2019, I was barely surviving part-time at Fred Meyer, hoping that that would be a career that I could platform off of, when the reality is nobody has a career in something like Fred Meyer. But I didn't know better at the time. Like, your parents taught you. You stick with a place 20, 30 years to have a career. That world doesn't exist anymore. Like, I've had to really be, like, kinder to my past self and my past decisions for trying to make decisions based on conditioning or what I thought was right based on someone else's perspective. And that's not the way to be. And, it's been a tough adjustment, but like it's been very needed on like reshaping the frame of like the world that you were taught growing up by your parents does not exist anymore. And I've had to really like focus down on like, technically speaking, my diverse skill set in all the things that I have done in retail and customer service in the last decade or so, I am, by all things considered, if my parents were in their prime and they were still available on the job market, I would still be a more hireable candidate than they ever were. My dad, a broken man, was forced to retire from being a firefighter and lamented for 18 to 20 years at a job that he hated because it was the closest thing to what he knew. He didn't know anything else. My stepmother was a trucker, become IT, and that was all that she ever did. My birth mom apparently worked at Boeing before I was born and did jack squat after that. Like, tried. By hook or crook, tried. I'll give the devil her due. she knew hook and crook. But like, that world doesn't exist anymore where you can just scoot on by. Like, it's a more competitive world than it ever has been. Like, when I was in college, an associate's degree was acceptable. A bachelor's degree was exemplary. Now, to like make anything remotely salary wage, you have to have further education. And I knew many years ago that I had a choice to make. I had to either sit down, be financially unstable, and pursue further education, knowing how so many people were going through student debt at that time, on top of like car payments and debts of other kinds and all that. Or I can hope that I can build a professional portfolio and a professional career to get to the path that I want. And I don't know what the other path would have looked like, but I'm so glad I'm on the path that I am right now. Because again, I get to say that I got to do things that very few people are able to say that they did. So, that's been some perspective stuff. And Logan, man, I mean, take pictures while you can. I mean, what more can you say? Like, the brightest lights in the room are sometimes so bright for others, and we never know what someone is going through. What is that Blade Runner quote? A light that burns twice as bright only burns half as long. And you burn so very, very brightly, Roy. I mean, and that's the thing as well, is like social media is not real. Let's just like let's address the elephant in the room. Social media, the perspective of people on social media is not real. The anxiety that you get from comments, from avatars behind a screen, that's not real life. That doesn't exist in the real world. Your fortress of solitude is an illusion. It is not reflective of the outside world in real time. Because at the end of the day, if you go out in the real world, most people are indifferent. I'm not going to say don't give a shit about you, but I'm going to say most people are indifferent about anything that you can do unless you are directly affecting them. So if you are putting on that mask like you're doing okay because you have to, I mean, that's fine. But don't let the narrative of that be because I'm not good enough, because you are good enough. Everybody is doing more than enough. Like, give yourself some credit. Because nobody really knows what the hell's going on anymore. You know, perceived experts and all that. And I'm not talking like knocks on science or anything like that, but at the same time, like the way that life, like just general life works. There's no like one blueprint, because if there was, everybody would be doing it. You know, when you look at things like poverty and family dynamics, it's such a complicated mess. It's such a random set of variables that nobody can really quantify it. Just do the best that you can, man. Like, that's the real tough thing. Is like, if you think there's a better solution, but you don't know what the equation to that would be. And that was something that I told myself a long time ago. Was I used to say, if I knew what was wrong, I'd find a way to fix it. And that is such a harsh mentality to have, because then you are relying on quantifying variables. I'll give you an example of like the worst one that I did to myself. I'm very used to people not meeting me in ways that I would like. And I used to get very self-destructive about that. I would get frustrated about like, the narrative that I would use, for example, is like there's a difference between trusting people and relying on people. I can trust people not to steal my stuff when they're here, but I can't rely on them to answer my phone. So like emergency contact, who do I call for an emergency? Still kind of true, but that's besides the point. And what I mean by that is I used to be bitter about like, well, why have you figured it out and I haven't? Like I'm good enough, I'm deserving enough, and I try to quantify in my logic-minded brain. I try to quantify how did it happen? And when I ask people in like loving relationships, what happened? And they're like, I don't know, it just happened. And I'm like, that's not an answer. And it's like, sometimes in life, that's the answer that you get. Like, why is Logan Paul one of the biggest bridges for the casual audience to pro wrestling, even though he is a complete, insert descriptive piece of shit word here? Sometimes that's just the way it happens. Like, just because it doesn't resonate with you doesn't negate that there's a reason quantifiably that, like, people pay attention because of the people that they like. I don't understand why Joe Rogan is as big of a hit as he is. I don't get why people in, business-minded entrepreneurship still praise Elon Musk for his business tactics when his tactics are horrendous and terrible and he's on a downward spiral. I can't tell you why. Deifying ideologies don't have to make sense to you. Just like one of my favorite quotes from Neil Tyson is, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to any of us. It's so true. Sometimes just like, some of the biggest mysteries of the universe, they're not meant to be solved with the way that we understand things. It's going to take further understanding of things, and there's even things that are still unsolvable. But we're not going to default to if it's unsolvable, it's because of God. It just means we don't have the answer yet. And, just life is complicated. Life is absolutely complicated. Life, as a poet once said, is like a hurricane. Race cars, lasers, airplanes, DuckTales. So I don't know. I just needed to, I need to get out of my head. I haven't done this in a while because, I've had a lot of things that I've had to process, like relationships that I've had to let go for not feeling validated in those roles that I was perceived in. So I've had a lot of time to let go of the emotional attachment of well, why did this happen after all this time? And it's like the old adage continues to ring true time and time again. As you grow, your friends will either grow with you or fall behind. And that's also true with interests. I mentioned back in December, I'm not that kind of wrestling guy anymore. And what's interesting is it's been outside of shows that I have found ways to confirm that. Because there's a few smarks that I work with, and I don't understand the contrarian mindset that, like, when you are so analytical and like, this is how I would write the script, I'm like, great, you should pitch that and try to get work in like a wrestling community magazine, and they just want to sit there and stew about things. The contrarian mindset is, I'm going to be so happy when Cody Rhodes loses because it's going to make everybody sad. Why? Like, why watch a thing for misery? Can anybody explain that? People people love the tea, and then there's like getting to the source of the tea that I'm just like, oh, that's vile. Like, that is that is objectively horrendous of you. That the only way that you are going to enjoy a product is if it's bad or if other people don't like it. It's like if you go to a fancy restaurant, you can have any kind of food that you want from any branch that you want, and you're just content with McDonald's. That's what it has felt like, is like the last few years, debatably. Maybe it's been going on a lot longer, but I have especially felt like the last few years of consumer level professional wrestling has been, here's the slop, the junk food that we know that you like, and have more of it. And have more of it. And have more of it. Oh, vegetables? You don't need that. We know what you like. Have some more slop. Have some more slop. And it has been getting little. It's been looking prettier. It's been looking sexier. It's been looking daddy step on me. I ain't about that. I'm about storytelling. I'm about production. When you've been rewriting the same script and the same formula since the 90s, or even further back, like if you really want to be historical about it, like the formula has never changed. So it's like everybody's been getting McDonald's because McDonald's sells ratings. And if we don't have a creative idea, we'll just, we'll go Burger King. We're going to go a different kind of generic slop. That's honestly what it has felt like. It has felt so formulaic to the point of being mind-numbing. And I hope that in the future, we have a way to shake up the formula a little bit. Like, I have a vision of what I want to do to take us from 1997 pro wrestling to 2077 pro wrestling. But I'm going to keep that a bit close to the chest because I'm not sure if that's a conversation that a lot of casuals will want to have. Like, if business people want to talk, let's talk turkey. Let's make something happen. But if we've known anything from internet consumerism, it's that people don't like change. Change is bad. This is not the slop that I like. You put lettuce and tomato in my greasy Big Mac. I don't like that. I want the slop that I've always been accustomed to. Because I'm consumer baby. So we'll see. We'll see if any change happens with that. But that's been a big thing on like contrarian consumerism. People like not liking things. I ain't about that. So that's why I've had to do something else. So do with that what you will, now that I have put that out into cyberspace. Meanwhile, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to focusing on my career. I'm going to focus on chasing wonder, chasing happiness, pursue the things that bring me joy, not sadness, pursue things that, you know, even for a moment, take me away from the real world. Because reality can bog you down if you let it. So sometimes, you know, activism is great, but activism without action, that's just a detriment to yourself. And we'll just go ahead and leave it at that, because there's so many things that can just fill in the gaps in there for you, and your first impression's probably right. I ain't about that. I got too little time left on this earth, so I'm going to focus on the things that make me feel good and positive and motivate me to make myself better, not bog me down on the ways of the world. So, I mean, I used to say, in case you didn't know, my name is Soul, and that's how I usually sign out, but like, am I still? Am I still? I feel like it, but like, some days a little less than others. Maybe not the Soul that you know, but maybe a more elevated soul. Like, maybe not the caricature, maybe not the aspiring wrestler, but I do still want to motivate people. Maybe that's the whole thing, is rewriting the perception of what you think of me in order to elevate me to a better place that I need to be to help people. Because that's what I really want to do. I don't want to bog people down. I don't want to be a burden to people. But I do want to motivate you, and sometimes that means a wake-up call that the distractions that you fill yourself with, that's the first sign that maybe something in here needs to change. Less up here, more in here. We need to feel things more. Chase your wonder. Chase things that feel good to you. And it's on that note that I will remind you, be kind to yourself. You are your own priority, and you matter. Maybe there will be another podcast run in me. But for right now, signing out.